We often make excuses and we fall into this victim mentality. And that's not just people with disabilities, that's humans as a whole. And I'm saying, no, it's time that we take accountability for what we're going through and pull our big girl panties or big boy panties up and get after it and get our hands dirty and get after life. Nothing will be given to you. There's no reward without work. So go ahead, put the work in, get after it, and make your dreams come true. Just because it seems difficult doesn't mean it's impossible.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Cade and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. I'm so excited to bring you this week's guest. Like me, she is a survivor and thriver after suffering a spinal cord injury. In January 2015, this week's guest was in a motorcycle accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Her life is, of course, completely different after her injury. She has taken to social media to provide support, instruction, and inspiration to others who live their lives in wheelchairs. But her story is relatable and inspirational to everyone. Jesi Stracham, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped to be here and just to have an opportunity to have a chat with you.
We're just thrilled to death that you're here, especially I am. Let's start out, tell the listeners kind of, who you are and what are you presently doing in your life?
So I'm Jesi Stracham. I'm a spinal cord injury survivor, a fitness enthusiast, and just overall wanting to live life to the fullest. I'm currently a student, which takes priority over everything. I'm applying for my undergrad, and I also run Wheel With Me Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to serving the wheelchair-using community and helping them find independence after life in a wheelchair or if they've been in a wheelchair their whole life.
Tell a little bit more about what you do with Wheel With Me Foundation.
So right now we're hosting courses every few months. So we just had our first empowerment week. It offered an at-home fitness course, growth mindset, a nutrition course. Our next one's actually going to have how to become an actor, how to become an advocate, another growth mindset course, and another at-home fitness course, and Zumba. So, we're trying to offer the community these resources for free to give them the confidence to live whatever life they want to live. Our wheelchair doesn't have to stop us. Just because society has an idea of what our life's like doesn't mean that's what we have to let define our life.
And what do you mean when society has their idea of what your life is like versus what it's really like?
So before I was paralyzed, I personally had an idea of what a wheelchair user's life was like. I worked for an orthodontist. We had a patient who'd sometimes come in on his crutches, sometimes come in on his wheelchair. And I always remember thinking, wow, his life must be so bad. And then I got paralyzed and that was one of my first resources. So I got to see how bad his life was, and it was absolutely incredible. He plays basketball. He's actually working to go to university. It's been really cool to see him grow up too. But, we live normal lives. And just because society says that we don't have to live a normal life doesn't mean that we can't find our own normal and make that accepted.
Well, and let's go back to January 18 of 2015 is when you had the motorcycle accident. If you would take the listeners through kind of, what happened to you and how you started your recovery.
So we were leaving a traffic light. I was a passenger on a bike, and a woman, she never slowed down, never stopped, just made a U-turn in front of us. The driver of the bike never stopped, and we collided. So the driver went through her car, broke his leg. I went over her SUV, breaking my back in 2 places. My ribs punctured my lungs, nicking my spinal cord, and I coded twice and was resuscitated. So, I'm very lucky to be alive. I ended up having a spinal fusion for most of my back, and then I was trached as well. So I absolutely enjoyed that, though. I would self-suction in the hospital. When I got moved from ICU to the progressive unit, and that was probably 3-4 days before I went to rehab, that's when I started doing things on my own. Like, I wanted to learn how to calf, and they wouldn't teach me, but I was just sick of having to rely on other people. I just don't like having to rely on other people because they're never going to get there in the time that you want them to get there. They're never going to be as quick as you want. And so I just have no patience, and it's my independence, my drive definitely comes from just not having patience to wait on other people.
Well, tell us a little bit about your rehab and your recovery.
So I was in rehab for 6 weeks the first time, went home for a week, got C. diff, which is an intestinal infection. It's really bad. Don't recommend it. And I got put back in the hospital for a week and then went back to rehab for 3 weeks. I also don't try this at home, kids. I snuck out of rehab on Sundays to go to driver's ed. So that way, because I went home for a week, so I knew what wasn't going to work. I needed a car. I needed that independence. I needed to be able to come and go as I please. And I think that played a really big, the fact that I got to go home for a week, got sick, and then got put back in rehab. I knew everything I needed to work on. I knew exactly what I needed when I got home. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life. I feel like it gave me so much more independence so much more quickly. And I'm grateful that I got sick and I had that opportunity. Because like I said, by the time I got out of rehab, I had my car with the hand controls. I was ready to go. There was no pause this time. There was no being stuck at home. And so that's what really inspired me to initially start Wheel With Me Foundation, because I really want to build a transitional community that gives people a chance to go home for a minute, figure out what else they need, and then they get to be taught by wheelchair users how to accomplish that thing. Because wheelchair users are way more resourceful than a PT, you know?
Right. Well, it's always good to be around and learn from people who are actually, have gone through what you've gone through. I mean, a physical therapist who is not in a wheelchair, that they've been trained on what to do, but they've never been there. I know exactly what you're saying. And back on what you were talking about going home. I remember when I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital itself for about a month, and then I was in rehab for about 2 or 3 months. But toward the end of rehab, I got to go home, but only for the day. I could not spend the night at home. But I think one thing I found, and I don't know if you found this too, but once you got out of that hospital or institutional setting and back in the real world, when you're actually sitting in your den, hanging out with your friends versus being in a hospital rehab, I think it jump-started kind of me, at least for me, getting ready to get back in the real world. I mean, did you find that out?
Absolutely. The first weekend I was out of rehab, that second time, I was riding passenger in a side-by-side in a race. The next weekend, I was on a flight to Boston, going to the Boston Marathon. So I literally hit the ground rolling when I got out that second time. Because going home for a day, going home for a night even, it's not enough time for you to truly know what's going to work and what's not going to work, what you need to work on, what you don't need to work on. And I think that if insurance wasn't so damn greedy, they could really set us up for success to where we won't be taking as much from the system in the long run. And I think that's what these people need to think. Everyone's so focused on the monetary amount right now, but it's like, if we covered these things and provided this support, the long-term savings would be monumental. So why wouldn't we want to save more money in the future than we're spending now in the rest of the future? Like in this, I just feel like me going home for a week and then getting to go back to rehab and figure out, because I knew everything that wasn't going to work, everything that wasn't doing it for me, and what else I needed to learn. And I think that truly set me up for success with everything, my fitness, my skin health, my overall health. I don't get sick. I don't get pressure sores, knock on wood, because I move a lot. I don't have any issues. And I think that when you look around the community, speak to other members of the community, they have a lot of issues. And I think it's directly related to where they started in their injury with it, because a lot of them will say, I wasn't sick like this until I became a wheelchair user. Now, don't get me wrong, things do happen to us that make us sicker, but what's your lifestyle? That's the first thing I ask somebody when they're like, I don't know why I can't do this, or I don't know why I keep having this issue. Well, what's your lifestyle look like? Because I know when I was drinking every weekend, I couldn't get my bowels right either.
All right. And I want to get into what you're saying here in just a little bit, but take me back. All right. So you said you're already when you were out for a week, you went to the Boston Marathon, you're out, you're doing things, but what's going through your mind? Your life was the way it was. Then you had this accident, and now it's completely changed. What's your mindset at this point?
At that point, it was I had to walk. I probably spent the first year of my injury, I just had to walk. The next year, I found adaptive sports, and it was like, all right, now I just need to be an athlete. That's when, after my second year of injury, that's when I really took my diet, my mental and physical diet, into my own hands and just started eating whole foods and eating clean and started exercising regularly and making it a point to do that. And then honestly, I never stopped long enough to think about what had happened to me till COVID. And COVID happened and it forced me to stop. because I had been traveling nonstop, literally since I got out of the hospital. And so COVID hits, we're on these lockdowns, can't leave the house, whatever. And that's when I got into my head. And I'm like, wow, I'm paralyzed. And like being stuck in that moment, you have two choices. You have the opportunity to look at everything that you have or everything you've lost. And because I couldn't distract myself with anything but myself, I only saw what I lost. And I'm going to say for probably 2-3 months, it got really dark. For 2 months, I didn't work out at all. I lost a ton of weight. I dropped down to like 120. I was way too skinny, I felt bony. And it got really unhealthy really quick. And then I found First Form. I won a trip to their headquarters, and it completely changed my life because I met all these people that they all have their own story. At the end of the day, your paralysis, whatever you go through in life, isn't the end of all ends, because everybody's going through their own thing. And it was really cool to hear all of these incredible stories and these powerful tribulations to overcoming. And I'm like, okay, my problems aren't that big. And they really made me switch my mindset and realize, I may not have control over my legs, but I truly do have control over what I eat. I have control over tracking that and seeing what I'm doing, how much water I'm drinking, how much activity I'm truly getting. And it created this accountability. And now I'm just like, I have to do it. It's just part of my routine. And it's really keeping me, I feel mentally unstoppable. I feel unstoppable, period. But it's completely transformed my life. And I think it's because it's given me control after I lost control. But the first thing I tell people when I peer mentor a lot, I tell them, go speak to someone. I wish I would have spoke to someone in the beginning. I wish I would have taken a minute to really think about what had happened to me, because it is such a life-altering event. A spinal cord injury is no joke. Like a lot of people only see the exterior of not being able to walk, but you lose bowel and bladder control too. Man or woman, it's kind of demoralizing for a minute, and you're like, well, crap, literally. And you have to kind of figure it back out again. So just definitely take a minute to pause and realize what's happened to you, and don't rush yourself to get over it.
Well, let me ask you this, because you brought that up, and I had those same issues too. I was paralyzed completely from the neck down for a while, and then just got fortunate that my damage to my spinal cord wasn't so significant that I couldn't ever walk again. So, it was just, and like you are too, like you said earlier, you're fortunate that you didn't die. I'm just fortunate that my injury wasn't as bad as it could have been. People like us, we kind of look at life a little differently about, God, we're fortunate. Here we are, people see me walking down the street. Occasionally I trip and fall, and they're like, oh, that poor guy. But you know what? I'm fortunate to be able to trip and fall. So
Isn't that the truth?
You get a whole different perspective when you go through some of the stuff like we do. But because I think this is important, and it's something that needs to be talked about, I think, because with spinal cord injured people, you do the whole bladder and bowel thing, and I went through it too. The catheterization, the ability to do a number 2, it's changed. And it does. It is it takes a little bit of a mental toll on you, because that's something that you think it just should be natural. Tell us your thoughts on that, or go a little deeper with that if you don't mind.
So I refused to learn how to cath in my chair because I wanted to be normal and cath on the toilet. With that being said, I still cath in my car because it's so convenient. Honestly, I just try to find the positive with it. It's like, okay, I get to cath in my car. Like, I don't have to get out of the car when I'm on a long trip to go to the bathroom because I have a catheter with a bag and I can just do it here. The bowel thing was definitely interesting. The idea, I think at first when the nurse stuck her finger up my butt to help me poop, I'm like, no, I'm going to do this on my own. And I'm not doing this. She put me over a trash can. I'm like, no, we're going to the toilet. Like, I'm not doing this. No. And it was eye-opening to how big my misconception was of paralysis or a spinal cord injury. I didn't know what spinal cord injury was, so paralysis. I'm like, wow, I thought that you just couldn't walk. You don't realize that those bodily functions go with it. To this day, my bladder is still my biggest struggle. I hate cathing. I forget to bring catheters with me 9 times out of 10. If anything comes back, I hope it's my bladder. But I definitely... just accepting it, I think, is the biggest thing. Like, we can't change it. We can't undo it. All we can do is just trying to be a little better each day. And so that's what I do. I work out each day. I eat very clean. I track everything, make sure I'm staying on track. And I drink a lot of water, cath as I need, clean cath, and just try and take care of myself as much as I can, because we get so focused on what we don't have control over that we let it control us. And so it's so important that we just take back that control where we can and realize that, you might not be able to walk, you might not be able to control your bowel bladder, but there's a lot that you still do have a handle on if you allow yourself to.
Right. Hey, and Jesi, when did the light bulb go on for you that you said, look, I need to eat right, I need to drink right, I need to exercise, I need to take care of myself? I mean, how did that come about? When did that start?
When I became an adaptive athlete, that's when I quit drinking and just really decided to start being better. But honestly, to how I am right now, when I went to First Form, like meeting all those people that are there at HQ, being surrounded by all these people that let fitness consume their life. And then now they've been a part of my life for almost 6 months now. And using the protein, using everything I use, it's just completely transformed my shoulder health. Like I started using a post-workout. They educated me on why you use it because of the way our muscles tear and reduce glycogen levels and how it restores it, and it prevents lactic acid buildup, so it prevents soreness. And you're like, okay, I don't believe it. But then you use it. I have no shoulder issues now. I went from getting cortisone shots this time last year in my shoulders, hardly able to transfer, had to get a smart drive, because my shoulders were deteriorating. And it turns out when I started tracking my food, I wasn't getting anywhere near my daily protein. I wasn't getting anywhere near my daily carbs or my water. I was getting like 30 ounces of water a day. And it's like, we think we're doing the right thing, but we're not until we don't know for sure unless we track it. And if you track it and you are, by all means, awesome. But I guarantee there's a very high chance you're not. And taking that control back has seriously, completely transformed me as a person. I feel, like I said, unstoppable.
All right, so let me ask you this. Through all of this, what have you learned about yourself?
I've learned my strength. I've learned how much I lean on my faith and how I need to continue to keep that strong, because that's what keeps me strong. Honestly, how strong of a person that we can be if we allow ourselves to be. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's like I let go of every judgment of who I thought I should be. I let go of every judgment of who I thought others should be. And I really just started focusing on myself and just leading with love every day and being the best person I can be every single day. And I genuinely do that. And you're so happy. I literally cried because it was 70 degrees yesterday, because I was just so happy to see the sunshine, and I had so much gratitude. And that happens every day. I find so much gratitude in the smallest things that it will bring me to tears. That's like how much emotion I feel because of it. And I think that it's just so beautiful to find that. I'm truly in the best physical and mental space I've ever been in my entire life, able-bodied or paralyzed.
Then you just answered my next question. My next question was going to be, how have you changed as far as what type of person you were before your injury until now? But you just answered it. So
I'm more selfless now, I would say 100%. I'm a lot more selfless. We all live selfish until our eyes are open to something else. And this was my eye-opening experience that really made me realize there's a bigger purpose out there than just fulfilling whatever it is that I want in that moment.
Right. I don't know about everybody that's had spinal cord injuries, of course, but just talking to you, and I know, what goes through my mind, and what you just said, at least to me, and I wrote this in my book, it's the small things in life. God, that's the most important. It's the hanging out with family and friends. It's the going to see a movie. It's the sunshine, getting some sun on your face. It's amazing how
that sunshine,
when you go through, what we've gone through, how just some of the small things are just so incredible that I'm not sure other people focus on.
I feel like a lot of it too is because, when this happens, you have two choices: focus on what you've lost or focus on everything you have. I'm not going to lie. I focused a lot on what I lost. And there's still moments where I'm like, shit, I focused on what I lost. But at the same time, I decided to focus on everything I have. And I have a roof over my head. I have a loving family. I have my dog. My life has so much abundance that I don't have time to be sad anymore. And I think when we focus on the abundance, that really helps your overall happiness.
I gotcha. Let me ask you this. What do you miss the most prior accident until now?
I think it's honestly still the same three things it's been since day one. Number one, standing in the shower, feeling the hot water go all the way down my back, down my butt, down my legs. Number two, the freedom to just pick up and go and not have to worry about health insurance, not have to worry about where my supplies are. Number three, hiking mountains, just hiking big mountains and climbing rocks and just doing outdoorsy mountainous stuff. Those are the three things from day one. Those are the biggest things I definitely missed.
How do you best compensate for missing those things?
When I learned the floor transfer, I was able to take baths. So I take a hot bath, not the same, but similar. For the freedom just to pick up and go, I keep I call it my diaper bag, but it's like a calf pack in my car. So at least if I want to go stay overnight somewhere, I can do that. And then the mountains, there's thread trails around me, Carolina Thread Trail, and they have different paved trail systems and different trail systems that they have crushed gravel, so they're easy to wheel. And so I try to get Roxanne into nature 3 times a week or so, and that just keeps me outside.
Gotcha. All right, based on your experiences, what advice can you give the listeners when they're facing adversity? I mean, not just spinal cord injury adversity that's, as you know, that's completely life-changing. But from what you've learned about yourself, about what you've gone through, if listeners are going through just adversity of any kind, what advice do you give them?
Let go of judgment. Regardless of what we're in, we judge of how we think it should be, how we think we should act. And I say just let that go. Feel the emotions, let them ride out, but don't stay there. You cannot unpack in that negative space. You've got to let yourself to continue to grow, to continue to move on from it. You have to accept that things might not be easy or go the way you want them to. Life doesn't go the way we want it to. 9 times out of 10, nothing ever works out the way we wish, but you do have control over how you react over it. And so it's trying to maintain a calm, level head and putting your best foot forward as far as moving on from it, because you can. You got to remember that this moment isn't yours forever.
So what's your plan for the next 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
10 years.
Do you even think that long?
5 years.
Or we'll go 5.
Yeah, can we do 5?
5, yeah, well 5. Yeah, 10's long. Yeah, let's go 5.
Graduating with a PhD in psychology, making my political run for Congress. Wheel With Me Foundation up and operating, has the different branches doing its thing. And I would be the CEO of my company, Wheel With Me LLC, with Jackie. Jackie's like my right and left hand woman. But she runs Wheel With Me Foundation social media on top of day-to-day tasks. Like, this woman's incredible, but she would definitely be the person to run my company. And yeah, we're getting after it. You just wait, it's coming. And hopefully, have a movie by then too. I would like to get on the big screen, at least one movie.
Well, and I want to ask you about that. I saw, because I follow you on your Instagram and Facebook and everything else. Tell me about the acting. I've seen some stuff on there. What are you doing in that realm?
I've been in an independent film called Save Rosemary, The Trinity. It's part of a 3-part series. I'm in the 3rd film. And then I'm in the series called Date Me. It's about Kristen Beal. She's a wheelchair user who went on 30 dates in 70 days. That's a lot of dates. And you know how crappy people can be. So it shows the good and the bad of dating, period. Like, dates just suck. Dating sucks regardless of if you have a disability or not. And it really just normalizes life as a wheelchair user. So I actually play Gabrielle. I am the villain in the series. And it's really fun because I'm truly acting. I'm nothing like my character. She's so mean. And it's fun to get to act. I really enjoy it. I take weekly classes, train regularly, and just continue to try and get better. And I submit a lot and hopefully get picked up.
All right. So give me the name of that show again that you're on.
It's called Date Me. And if you look it up on YouTube, it's Date Me Saltfire Studios.
Okay. Hey, and let me ask you this. On that show so you have the heroine, I guess, who's in the wheelchair, who is dating these guys. Do the guys know she's physically disabled or in a wheelchair before they show up? Or
Some of them.
Okay.
Sometimes she doesn't tell them. Sometimes, yeah. I don't want to give it away, but definitely check it out. It's really cool because it's like she finds these guys on a dating app, and it's based off of, she turned it into a comic. It's based off of her comic. And so she turns her dates into this comic, and she meets these guys off of Bumble and goes on all these dates. It's funny because one guy didn't realize there was stairs and no lift to a place. Another one was like, well, you didn't tell me you're in a wheelchair, because there was times when she didn't, but there's others that accept it. So it really brings light and a funny heart dating idea, because that, dating sucks.
Let me give you a little quick story. When I was at Carolina in law school, I was in a bar with a bunch of my buddies, and we're talking to some girls. I was sitting at the time, and I kind of hit it off with this one girl. She gave me her number, called me. Then I got up and walked to the restroom, and she saw me walk. And then I call her the next day, and well, guess what? No reply. One rule I got out of that is, do not ask a girl out unless you are already standing up and walking around, so she knows the whole picture before it happens. So that was the rule of thumb that I learned from that. So anyway. Well, all right. So let me ask you this, and we're about to wrap this up. All right. If somebody wants to follow you on social media, how they do it?
All right. So they can find Wheel With Me Foundation at Wheel With Me. And then I'm Jesi Stracham, JesiStracham, on all social media platforms.
Okay. And if somebody wants to donate to Wheel With Me Foundation, I guess they can just go to the website?
Yep. Go to the website, hit the donate button. We're in the process of updating it now as well, the website itself.
Okay, awesome. All right, I do this with every guest. I'm going to give you the parting shots. Anything on your mind that you would like to say, that, maybe a question I didn't ask you, or just something you want to get off your chest? Now's the time to do it.
Yeah, we often make excuses and we fall into this victim mentality. And that's not just people with disabilities, that's humans as a whole. And I'm saying, no, it's time that we take accountability for what we're going through and pull our big girl panties or big boy panties up and get after it and get our hands dirty and get after life. Nothing will be given to you. There's no reward without work. So go ahead, put the work in, get after it, and make your dreams come true. Just because it seems difficult doesn't mean it's impossible.
That's why I always ask that last question, because you never know what you're going to get. And of course, that was just, what you just said was just phenomenal. So that's why I do that. Well, Jesi, thanks so much for coming on today. I think this is only my 15th or 16th show so far, and but it's been going great. But I've been looking forward to this one for a few weeks once we kind of hooked up, just because, you and I, have the, similar type of injury. So I was looking so forward to this. So thanks so much for coming on. All the best. Just a wonderful person. Your attitude's phenomenal. Good luck with getting into your colleges. Like I said, I know Davidson, where I went, is your fallback, but whenever you need the letter of recommendation from an alumni, you got it. Okay.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I will be sending you a request.
Excellent. All right, Jesi, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Man, Jesi Stracham is just awesome. It's a great time for me as well to speak with a fellow spinal cord injury survivor. It's almost as if her life has taken off after her injury. Next week's guest is Denny Cipollini. Denny lost his left leg below the knee and went on to run marathons. His story is one of overcoming and thriving. See you next week. Thanks for listening to the show. If you're interested in getting my book, Get Back Up, just go to Amazon and put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Caden. It'll pop right up. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. I would really appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend. I would like as many people to hear my message as possible. And we'll see you next week. Never give up and always get back up.